by the preaching of two witnesses. Now, I personally believe they're Enoch and Elijah. My friend Bill Cloud and I, this is about the only thing Bill Cloud and I have ever differed on. We don't, we don't fight over it, but he thinks it's Moses and Elijah. I believe it's Enoch and Elijah because Enoch was a prophet, prophesied the coming of the Lord, and Enoch's never died. And they're the only two men that have never died. So we don't make an issue, and I know I'm going to get a 25-page thesis as to why it's Moses. But anyway, just so you'll know, everybody's got their opinion on this, and that happens to be mine based on my research, and other good men that I love and know may have a difference of opinion, but nonetheless there's going to be two witnesses. Now, you got to get this. Are you ready? One of the reasons I believe it's Enoch and Elijah. You ready? Everybody ready? I got my group with me here, by the way. Here's why it's Enoch and Elijah. Because in Romans chapter 11, when you take that olive tree, there's two types. There's the tree of Israel and the wild olive tree of the Gentiles. In the prophecy, he says these two witnesses are two olive trees. Two olive trees. Ready? In Zechariah, he says they're two olive trees. That means if some of the branches are Gentile and the root is Jewish, that means you've got to have one witness that's a Gentile and one that's a Jew. Don't miss this. Enoch was a Gentile because Enoch existed before Abraham became the first Hebrew. So Enoch is the Gentile part, but guess what Elijah is? The Tishbite of the Jew. So in other words, you have Elijah the Jew, you have Enoch that is a picture of the Gentiles, and then you've got two olive trees, a Gentile tree, a Jewish tree. Zechariah, you've got the Gentile tree, the Jewish tree, and so you've got one representing the age of the Gentiles, one representing the Jews, and they come together here as the two witnesses in the city of Jerusalem, and that coming together is the picture of Romans 11 where God has taken out the Gentile branches. Why? Because the Gentiles have fallen into unbelief, because the church has been now caught up, and God now turns his attention back to Israel, and Paul said, all Israel shall be saved. So when's that going to happen? Now watch this. It has to do with the rebuilding of the temple. Now let me get back to the temple in the time I've got, because see, this teaching, one of my friends on the trip, a sister was just saying a moment ago, how much do you actually give us on TV when you do a program? See, this teaching is 2 hours in length to 3. And you're getting about 21 minutes of it. Now I know sometimes when you teach, people have questions because you can't answer everything just in 21 or 22 minutes. Here's the point that's interesting. There is going to be, according to the New Testament, some kind of a building which will be called a temple, which will be built here. The only way it could ever be done is if a prophet like Elijah would come with signs, wonders, and miracles and be able to send judgment on anybody that would disagree with him. Then the fear of God would hit everybody. They would be permitted to build up here. Now here's the part that's real interesting. Everybody ready for this? If you've not heard this, this is going to shock you. There's a professor here, and I won't name him because this program goes around the world. He's from the Hebrew University, which is right over here on the hill. At the Hebrew University, this professor did research on the rebuilding of the Jewish temple. He was one of the first men on the Temple Mount to take pictures of stones that were in the ground all the way from probably King Solomon or Herod's temple. And later the Muslims came and pulled all those stones up because they didn't want there to be any identification of a Jewish presence on the Temple Mount. But he got the pictures in 1967. When he completed his research, this is what this professor said. He said, if we, the Jewish people today, were to start rebuilding a temple, it's not that it takes forever to build one. You can cut the stones and build it in a short period of time. But he said, because you have to pray certain prayers on Sabbath days, new moons, and certain prayers on the feast, you ready? It would take 42 months to build it. Thank you. I think the people here just got it. In other words, Enoch and Elijah, assuming it is Enoch and Elijah, we know it's Elijah, but assuming it's those two, they appear here, they preach for 42 months. Now, it's all going to come together for you here now. One represents the Gentile, one represents the Jew. 144,000 Jews become involved, sealed with the seal of God. They pour into this city, and all of a sudden, they take over. And during the taking over process, they begin to pray, construct this temple. But watch this. Daniel says he causes the sacrifice to cease. This professor said if we started in the fall and went 3.5 years, the dedication would be at Passover. Well, here's what's going to happen. The moment that they go to dedicate this temple after 3.5 years, first part of the tribulation, the Antichrist comes with his armies and stops it all and kills those two witnesses. Now, don't you miss it. And the reason the Antichrist kills the two witnesses is to get the Temple Mount back.